Hello, d.i.c.e. Pleasure to be here. So I'm part of the AR leadership team within Niantic and spent the past decade working in technology applications in the augmented reality space, both at MIT and co-founding my own company. So I've been a part of Niantic for just over a year now, and then going to be talking about what I view as one of the key questions that people generally ask in augmented reality today. Should you care? The industry is like very, very much buzzed about right now, but then the market is in its very early stages of development. So there's three things that I really want to cover today. First off, why is it so buzzed about right now? Where is the momentum coming from? And understand a little bit of the history behind that. Two, get into where is the value today? What can you do now? So there's all about this talk about the vision of AR, but what's actually practical on the ground right now. And then three, get into what is gaming's impact on augmented reality long term, and how will gaming fit into this new computing medium as it develops? So to start, let's just dive in. Why is augmented reality hot? We talked about like there's momentum currently, but specifically to whom is it really popular with? Is it just the investors? Is it just the giants that are putting a whole bunch of money into a cool new tech space? Now, to understand where this momentum is coming from, we need to get back into the history of it. So in the way back when in the stone age of AR and VR, 3 years ago, AR was kind of the smaller child to virtual reality. So this was about the time that I co-founded a company, Escher Reality, where this is when people were like, AR, you mean VR? Now, this was kind of not too popular at the time, but then people could see the potential of where it was going. And that potential was really realized in middle of 2016 when a little app that did a little bit of augmented reality called Pokemon Go came out. Don't worry, this is not a puff piece of Niantic marketing material. It's just you can't quite avoid talking about augmented reality without talking about the impact that Pokemon Go had on it. This was in the course of 1 month, there was 100x growth from virtual reality as compared to augmented reality. Now, as a tech person in the space, this meant that the whole industry was flipped around, where virtual reality became much smaller than augmented reality, because hundreds of millions of people were playing AR all across the world. And actually, just last night, I was talking with someone from Epic that they had their security guards at the parking lot make sure that people would avoid the Pokestops that were on the Epic campus. Now, this proved to be very, very profitable, which was good for developers in that, hey, you can actually make money in this new technology space. And this actually was followed by Apple and Google releasing ARKit and AR Core, which brought much more high-fidelity augmented reality experiences to, again, hundreds of millions of devices that people already had. So kind of solve the distribution problem that has plagued other areas like virtual reality. But this is a little bit different. It wasn't just the giants following like Pokemon and being reactive. This was part of a longer-term strategic goal that really needs to be addressed. And they're spending billions in order to realize this. Now, AR disrupts the current giants. It's not just, hey, like, let's make AR better on this. The future of all of this is really going to change the way that we do computing. It's heralded as like the next computing medium as you begin to go from a pure digital world to an integrated physical and digital world. Excuse me. Now, if you think about how does this affect the different giants and why are they putting in so much money, if you think about what is the next computing platform when you separate mobile phones in a currently saturated market, if you put the screen in your back pocket, or you put the computer in your back pocket and the screen up to your eyes, like, how does that change how we interact with mobile computing now? That's going to change the types of devices that we have on a regular basis longer term. What about data? So Google is one of the kings of data, but then who owns the data world when everything moves from a pure digital space into the physical world? Like, what about this physical world data race that's happening now? How does enterprise software change over time? Is it just Word and Excel and you put up screens in there? I personally believe that the main application that's going to bring augmented reality headsets to the main market is going to be replacing laptops, where you put on your glasses and you have a 100-inch monitor, and then I'd pay $3,000 for that. But the software applications that run on that, that's all going to change. And social, most social experiences are in the real world. They're the interactions that we have on a daily basis. Like Facebook had to pay a fair amount of money to be still relevant in the mobile space. What happens when shopping today kind of gets into like malls that you can bring into your own home, that you can select and view how pieces fit? That's going to change the way that we do shopping. Now, this is all the giants coming from their own different business models, focusing on the core problem of augmented reality. So they're coming at it from so many different directions, but they're all trying to solve the same problem. And these are companies with like some of the biggest financial reserves that we've ever seen in the history of companies. So they're all trying to solve this problem. This leads to what I consider to be an obvious conclusion. AR is inevitable. It's a question of when, not if. If all of these companies are putting in billions of dollars of research and development and applications into this new computing medium, then it's gonna happen. So this allows us a very unique time where we can begin to predict the future. So what is the computer medium that's gonna happen? We don't know exactly when, but we know that it will. But we're on an elite gaming conference right now. So what? Is this just the giants fighting over kind of their future platform wars and maybe a different subset will win? How is this gonna change? Like, what changes for us today? It's not quite just them, because there is actually technology and applications that are being developed. It's not just Niantic. There's a growing momentum of new companies that are exploring in the space. And we have different stepping stones today in order to get to this grander vision. But let's talk more specifically. Where is the value today? So this is not just the vision of it all, where is it all going, but really it's more about the reality aspect. The world is now becoming content that we can interact with. It's not just escaping to a digital kind of device and exploring what is the content created in that world. It's really taking digital applications and bringing them into the real world. And I'll say something controversial here, but AR by itself is not valuable. Which, being part of Niantic, don't go out tweeting about this right now, but let me explain. So let me get into the specifics of it. AR by itself is not valuable, because we all need to remember that AR is a technology. It is not an application. So people don't care about a mobile device, they care about making calls with it. They care about checking email. So as you get into this new space, there's actually a growing problem in the AR community right now where it's a bunch of tech people like who make really cool tech that geeks like me can really appreciate, but that the general consumer is still kind of a ways away. The tech race is a couple generations ahead of the application space, and we need to begin to solve this problem. Now, for me, this was a lesson that was learned over many, or kind of a couple years, but one example really highlighted. We, at Escher Reality, in the early days, we made a wonderful kind of flying squirrel demo where we spent 6 months working on the technology and applications, getting advanced SLAM algorithms, doing structure from motion, all to support like a back-end bundle adjustment system. And then like we just hired out an animator to make a little flying squirrel that would zip around the room, and then you could kind of see it. And then we showed it to people and thought that they would be amazed at all of our technology. And people really didn't care, which as a technologist, they're just like, okay, what about the technology? They're like, I just want to tickle the squirrel. And you're like, oh my God, like, you're just, like, seriously, you just want to tickle it? And it's like, okay, that's what the animator does. And then you begin to realize that that's kind of like one of the big problems is there's so much technology that it can be really hyper-focused, but technology is 2 steps away from a customer. And this is something that I view really needs to change as we get into real-world gaming. Now, getting into more detail on that, like this whole real-world gaming aspect, it's not just it's beyond location-based game. It's really this interaction of the physical and the digital world. This creates an entirely new category of games that offers new experiences that people haven't been able to have before. There's new capabilities that you can have with the current technology, which I'll get into very shortly. But this is all part of what I consider to be like a next generation kind of world operating system, where you have like a consistent data layer on top of the world that people can begin to interact with. So then this is part of like making the real world content. How do we harvest the content out of the real world so that players can begin to build off of this and expand and explore their space and find new dimensions of it. One of the key things that this offers is it really fulfills the fantasy. Now this is a subtle point, but having an emotional connection to the real world is very valuable. So then if you think about the flying squirrel that we had before, if that was part of an AR digital pet game that you could play around, you could take care of, you could teach, then that could be really kind of powerful and engaging for people. Not sure who's whistling. But then if you think about the augmented reality portion of Pokemon Go, if you talk to the people who originally put it in there, then it was all about having the first impression being, hey, there's Pokemon in the real world. We want to catch them, we want to explore so that you can get around. So hundreds of millions of people had their first augmented reality experience just catching Pokemon. And then we think that expanding the realism of this is really going to enable next generation of capabilities and emotional impact to better delight the users. So this is actually joint work with, or not joint work, but work with part of our London team, a team that we acquired last year, very, very talented people, where you take advanced computer vision systems, neural networks, and do efficient mobile processing on that to then have a better spatial understanding. So this is kind of taking an image and then processing it to understand the depth of the image. So then you can have it walk around objects, to go behind planters, so then when people walk in front, then you can avoid them. Having this type of spatial understanding can really increase the realism. And that, I view, connects to one of the key values of augmented reality today, that everyday life is connected to gameplay. Games are tied to different locations. So it's not just this previous push notifications tell you, hey, you should be playing this experience. It's about kind of, oh, I'm waiting in line, and then what are the Pokemon around me? It's about connecting it to the different locations so people are reminded all the time. Like the first thing that I did when I got off the plane, not just because I'm a Niantic employee, but you go in the airport and then you find like what are the rare Pokemon that are only in Las Vegas. That type of connection of every time you're in a new location, you're reminded to play the game. And then that is very, very engaging and can increase the virality of the type of experience you have. So connecting this to the real world is really important. And it really offers a new dimension into how people can think about gaming at the moment. But let's get into even more specifics on what is new in augmented reality. So there's developers out there, they're all trying to build off of it. So what are the core technology mechanics that they can begin to play with and build off new kind of delightful mechanics on top of it? First, the technology behind this, it really is stemmed from kind of one area of academia that I spent many years working on called SLAM. So that's simultaneous localization and mapping. Now that is kind of a technical way to say, first, you need to understand where is the position of the device. GPS gives that to a certain degree, and you can begin to use that in the space. But then how do you know where you are in the world? And that can be helpful to connect things down to the, hey, you're by the beach, then you should have a water type experience there. Or, oh, you're in a park, you can have a grass type experience. But as you get more and more accurate down to centimeters, then you can actually have very large scale experiences where you can actually shoot at people, you can dodge around, where the position of the device from your left versus your right shoulder really can matter as you're beginning to play these games. And then they can be extremely engaging. And from experience, it's also kind of fun to shoot different energy packages at your CEO. But the other aspect of this is the mapping component. And this, from a gaming perspective, is what I talked about before, where the real world becomes content. This is extremely important, and I view the future of how augmented reality gaming is going to develop, and probably one of the most underutilized spaces right now, what I'm personally extremely excited about. This is where you begin to take in, using computer vision systems, to understand the real world. And this is the technology that computer vision unlocks. So if you think about the first version of this, the world is full of colors. So then you can make experiences where you can mine colors out of the world. So the resources of your games can be just the color makeup of your room. So it's not just making one game for one person at one time on a digital device. The whole balancing aspect and the strategies that you would use change based off of the colors of the environment. Now this is kind of just the first stage of this, but you could have, like, in this case, we had red blimps attacking blue blimps, and there were yellow blimps, and then you have like a blimp war that's happening in this multicolored room that really gets people engaged with their spaces. Next, as you get into more high fidelity, you begin to understand the surfaces and the geometry in the space to really make kind of cool, unique experiences where everyday objects can be transformed into new types of like portals, or in this case, like energy aspects that one of the design team hacked together. And then you can really unlock the objects of the world and then have it that it's not just, hey, I'm waiting in line. It's, oh, I'm looking at this chair. What can this chair do for me? So it's not just the locations, but also the objects that you get in there. And this is actually not too different from other types of gaming that people have done before. So before, or even currently, you have procedurally generated content. Now, if you think about augmented reality, there's actually a strong analogy there, where instead of using algorithms to develop, okay, here's all the digital parameters, let's tweak new worlds, new cities in an ever-expanding infinite landscape, but now you have like Earth as an AR game board, and you want to use, instead of computer vision algorithms procedurally generated, you want to bring in the content of the world and understand, hey, this is a chair, here's the different surfaces, how should I begin to interact with it? Now, how do you build games that respond to the world that's ever changing? So if you're making a tower defense game where, okay, you want it to plot through your living room and then someone moves a chair, then how should the game respond to it when the physical world has changed? How do you add in digital components so that they all fit in naturally? This is a really exciting area, and again, there isn't too much being developed in the space, so this is a very fertile ground for new applications and new development. Now, to get into the last part, let's talk about more why AR games matter, and specifically, how will the AR gaming space develop as the augmented reality market develops? It's not just that AR is interesting for games, it's that games are fundamental to the development of AR. Now, while gaming is always at the cutting edge of new technology, there's never a shortage of people saying, ooh, something new to play with and kind of build off of, and taking the technology and the creative aspect and blending it together into a new experience for players. It's just that augmented reality, because of its 3D nature, gaming will have a much longer impact on that. And then that's because, slides mess up. Welcome to 2019. So AR content, it's an equivalent sign, is equivalent to gaming content. So then as you get in to like augmented reality and not just the gaming spaces, you need 3D animation. You need UI. You even need storytelling so that it fits into the context of the environment. So these are all like building simulations for interactivity in the real world. Now, who are the people who have spent the most time building up these simulations for interactivity? Gaming has been doing that for decades, but other industries, this is a whole new concept. So we are at the cutting edge of kind of this new computing medium, but then as such, the game developers of today's world are actually going to be the web developers of the next generation of computing. So this is why, as compared to say even mobile, internet, and PC before, AR and gaming are going to have a more interconnected future than we ever saw before. Now, we're already seeing some of that today, where AR game studios are being pulled in by industry to do training applications, to say, okay, how do you like train up people to do like factory work? How do you do educational experiences? All of these things require the skills of AR game studios. And for us at Niantic, we're really, really excited about how this is going to be transforming not just the gaming space, but also the expanding space as the market develops. So as such, gaming will leave a massive footprint on AR. This will be an interconnected future moving forward. But what's also important to realize, we talked about this before, that gaming, or AR gaming is already here. So it already has made a massive impact on the world. every colored pixel up here is actually a Pokestop or an Ingress portal that people can begin to play with. So then this is the state of like where AR gaming is right now, and this is in the industry that everyone is like, oh, we're just at the beginning, we're just at the cusp of it. Like, if this is the beginning, then there's so much opportunity to get this even larger, because we believe that Earth should be an AR game board that everyone can play with, everyone can interact with. And when every colored pixel here is an arena where people can begin to play, then that's going to be really awesome and exciting. So the question here is, that we started with is, should you care? Now, like the giants are saying that at least they care, and they're putting in billions of dollars. That makes augmented reality inevitable. And then there is currently value today. The current state of technology, you have the distribution, you have like the early stages of what you can do with it, and people are already beginning to expand on that. And then third, as augmented reality begins to grow, and the AR market and the gaming market are in this interconnected web, the game developers who understand this new medium faster and newer and first than other people are going to actually have an immense amount of impact as the market develops longer term. So to the answer, like, should you care? We think so. Thank you very much.